This weekend, Adrian Houser had another clunker. Jose Quintana turned in the best start of the season, and Mark Vientos made it all worth it with a walk-off homer. A ton to discuss on today's edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right on new customers, get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150 win or lose. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, the Mets had a thrilling game on Sunday, came very close to a disappointing series sweep at the hands of the Cardinals. But thanks to Mark Vientos, the Mets found a way. Harrison Bader as well with a clutch hit late. And we'll talk about that, but we got to give our flowers to Jose Quintana first. The best start of this season for any Met. Quintana got through 8. He was brilliant. And the crazy thing is he threw 26 pitches in the first inning. Ends up with 99 pitches through 8. So that just shows you how economical he was beyond that first inning to just go out there, get contact early, get a bunch of outs on the ground, and just keep the Mets in the game. It was an old school pitcher's duel with Quintana and Lynn, literally old school. Those guys not throwing 99 or 100, just going out there, pitching to contact, doing their thing. For the Mets, there was a lot of loud contact that didn't result in anything thanks to Brendan Donovan making some insane plays in the outfield. But sticking with Quintana here, he gave up a double in each of the first 2 innings, and then he gave up 1 in the 5th. Those are the only hits that he allowed all game. 3 hits allowed, walked 1, struck out 3, gave up 1 run in that 5th inning. Mason Wynn led off with a double. He got advanced over to third base on a ground ball to Jeff McNeil. And then there was a safety squeeze play that was just executed perfectly. The absolute perfect bunt. Brett Beatty sort of caught in the middle of, do I try to go home? He had no chance on Mason Wynn, and then wasn't able to come up with the ball at all to get the runner out at first, and the Cardinals get on the board. But that was it. That was the only run that Quintana allowed, and it was on a bunt. He faced 30 batters in this game. 26 of them started with a first pitch strike, or they got out on the first pitch. So that's ridiculous. Commanded the strike zone for Quintana. And that's what he's got to do. He's got to attack. I think the last time out, he said he's been nibbling too much. Well, he didn't nibble at all today. He felt great. And I think the best part of that start for anyone watching was to see Quintana demand the ball, because in the 8th inning with 2 outs and Wilson Contreras, a righty coming up that destroys left-handed pitching traditionally, Carlos Mendoza was going to go to Adam Ottavino. That's what the analytics would tell you to do. A left-handed pitcher that should be gassed at the end of the day, facing a righty who feasts against left-handed pitching. And big credit to Carlos Mendoza, because Quintana was waving him off. Mendoza walked out to talk to him, to have a conversation, and said, all right, you go get him. And what did he do? He got a strikeout. He got him. And he roared coming off the mound. I think 2 of his 3 strikeouts came in that final inning. But just an outstanding effort by Jose Quintana. I'm just glad it wasn't wasted, because it looked like it might be wasted because the Mets just couldn't score. And on a lot of occasions, you can blame the offense for just not putting bat on ball, not having enough loud contact. But it felt like the Mets were hitting balls hard all day. Line drives right into people's gloves. A line drive back to the pitcher that was caught. Brendan Donovan laying out in the outfield, as I already alluded to. The only run that came through the first 10 innings was Francisco Lindor hitting a home run off Lance Lynn in the 6th. And the Mets chased Lynn in that 6th inning and looked like they were going to break the game open. After Lindor's home run, Pete Alonso walked. DJ Stewart hit a blue pit in front of Donovan over there and left. And the Mets were cooking. They had 2 guys on, nobody out. They could not score a run. 8th inning, Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso each draw walks to lead off the inning. They're stranded. Then you go to the extra innings. Owen Diaz had pitched a scoreless 9th. Reed Garrett came on in the 10th. He stranded the ghost runner, got a couple of huge strikeouts. And so you're in that position. You just need to get that runner home from second base. And it was Brandon Nimmo You had a fast runner. It should have been so easy. Your best hitter's coming up. And Francisco Lindor did his job. Okay. He hit a fly ball to right. He got Nimmo to third. So now here comes Pete Alonso, of course, with first base open. The Cardinals didn't pitch to him. And then DJ Stewart, because the bench had been cleared at that point, and it was Matthew Libator who, nearly got the Cardinals to like 3 1/3. I mean, he was great for them. He goes up against Stewart and he gets a double play ball, which is the only thing you can't do in that spot. And man, Stewart was so close to just beating that thing out, and then you would have won on a near double play ball. But if you had beaten that out, the fielder's choice walk-off could have happened. Would have saved a lot of us some heartache there, some headache, whatever you want to call it. But he does get thrown out, and a lot of frustration on that play. Garrett, first batter he faces in the 11th, he gives up a hit. And on a play that I think could have been a runner thrown out at home, Pete Alonso cuts off the throw from Tyrone Taylor because Brendan Donovan was running, past the bag and was able to get it out. And that ultimately ended up being, I think, the right call. In those situations in extra innings as the home team, if you can get out of it, giving up just one run, you're in a good position instead of sitting there with, potentially a runner on first and nobody out if the play at the plate doesn't end up going the Mets' way. And then you're potentially in a hole. Alonso made it a situation where there was one out, nobody on. Reed Garrett gets through the rest of that inning. All of a sudden, you got to score a run. And early, it wasn't looking good because the first two guys get out, and Harrison Bader fouls off the first two pitches that he saw. So he's sitting in an 0-2 hole, and it looked like the Mets were going to get swept. But then credit to Bader first, gets a fastball up. He's all over it, gets a knock, drives in the run, tie ball game so everyone can breathe easy. And Mark Vientos comes up to plate. And Vientos has a fantastic at-bat because he fell behind 0-2. Looked at a cutter low, didn't fall for it, out of the zone. Got a couple of breaking pitches, a cutter, and then a curveball in the zone. Fouled it off, staying in the at-bat. He said after the game he was just waiting for a fastball. He got one up, and he crushed it to pretty much dead center, maybe right center field, but it's tough to get it out at that part of the ballpark. It took every bit of the 404 feet that it traveled, and the center fielder Ciani for the Cardinals nearly made a spectacular play on it. But Mark Vientos hits a huge home run. He said after the game, too, that when they asked, did you know you got it? He said, I looked on the board, I saw the exit velocity. I thought I had a shot. It's 105.8 miles per hour at the bat, and he hits that home run to deliver an unbelievable win to the Mets, and leads us into our next segment here, because when Mark Vientos comes up, because Starling Marte went on the bereavement list, and in 2 games so far coming off the bench, he's 3 for 4, it leads you to wonder, can Mark Vientos hang on this Mets roster this time, or is it really just going to be an amazing 3-day cameo for Vientos and then right back to Syracuse? We'll talk about that in just a minute. First, though, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Want to make mom smile for Mother's Day this year? Why don't you send her some flowers or surprise her with a gift from her favorite brands that she loves, delivered the very same day by using DoorDash. Get thoughtful gifts that mom deserves with the convenience that you need. Choose same-day delivery or schedule a week ahead for when flowers and gifts should arrive to her door with DoorDash. You shop with savings that would make her proud with the Dash Pass membership, where you'll save with a $0 delivery fee and reduced service fees on eligible orders from Dash Pass merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees, including a service fee, apply. Terms apply. Get all of your Mother's Day's gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend at least $15 for your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your next order using DoorDash. Terms apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. I love Monopoly Go. It is my favorite game. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It is a great twist on the classic Monopoly, where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. Just like classic Monopoly, you can charge your friends rent on your iconic properties. But unlike classic Monopoly, you can rob their vaults of their riches for yourself. And there are leaderboards out there that show you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves Monopoly Go. I enjoy playing with friends, and you can also compete in time tournaments with players from around the world and earn huge rewards. So get in the game, join your friends, and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Now, on Saturday, we were all surprised when we learned that Mark Vientos had arrived at Citi Field. That's because Charlie Marte was on the bereavement list. So he's out for 3 to 7 days, but it seems like it's going to be just the 3 days, and Vientos gets a shot. Now, a lot of you might wonder, why would they call up Mark Vientos for 3 days? Literally, he's the only guy that they could have called up to get another bat in the lineup or bat off the bench. Because you're not calling up Luis Angel Acuna or Alex Ramirez, and there's nobody else on the 40 now. Nobody. I mean, Ronnie Mauricio, but he's on the 60-day IL. So they're not going to just add Rylan Bannon or Trace Thompson onto the 40-man roster for 3 days. Vientos was the only guy. Now, did he warrant a promotion with how he's hitting in AAA? Sure. I mean, he is too good to be in AAA. But because of the roster construction, there's also no place for him in the big league. So here's an opportunity. You get a chance, you better make the most of it. And Vientos has made the most of it. Got a hit off Ryan Helsley on Saturday. That's not an easy guy to get a knock off of. He gets a hit coming off the bench here in the 9th inning, and then hits a home run to walk it off. 3 for 4 off the bench. And Carlos Mendoza said he's going to be in the lineup on Monday. So we'll get to see a full start of Mark Vientos at third base. That'll be really nice. And who knows? I said third base. I might be talking out of school. Maybe he's the DH because maybe they give JD Martinez another day. I doubt it, though. I think Martinez will be back in the lineup. And who knows? They might hit back-to-back like they were at the end of the game when they both came off the bench, which was kind of an ironic situation to see Vientos getting ready with JD Martinez behind him. I was like, wow, that's a little bit weird. I thought for a moment in the 9th inning when that happened, I'm like, what if these two guys combine and hit back-to-back doubles? And that's how the Mets win the game. But it ultimately wasn't JD Martinez. It was Vientos that played the hero. But now here's the thing. As much as it was awesome to see, as much as, seeing Vientos round those bases and screaming out the way that he, hit home so fired up. I mean, he has earned a moment like that. And that was, I'm sure, all the pent up frustration. I'm pretty sure Gary said something like that. The frustration of not making the team, at a time where, in retrospect, you look back, could Mark Vientos have made more of an impact on this team for that time period than Zach Short did? There's a question, honestly, at this point, that he probably could have. But you made the decisions that you made, and here we are. Vientos gets that chance. He comes through. And now it leaves you to wonder, can he stay on the roster? And the answer is probably not. It doesn't make sense with how this team's constructed because JD Martinez is going to be in the lineup every day at DH, or at least almost every day. And when it's not JD Martinez, it can be DJ Stewart. And you can say, all right, we'll just option Stewart. DJ Stewart, 814 OPS on the season. DJ Stewart played in all 3 games this series. He went 2 for 6 with 3 walks. Got on base 5 times in 9 plate appearances. That's an on-base percentage over 500. On the season, his on-base percentage is 385. He is doing his job, and he's the perfect guy to be in a bench role. And on top of that, to complement the other guys on the roster because, hey, you got a right-handed DH and JD Martinez who's going to play most days, but hey, when a tough right is on the mat, if you want to give him a blow, you got a lefty you can slide in there. When you need a lefty off the bench, you have right there DJ Stewart. Tyrone Taylor is a right-handed bat off your bench, and Stewart's the left-handed bat, and they can complement Bader, Taylor, and Stewart throughout the game, playing matchups for those 3 guys, and also factoring in defense all in one spot in the lineup. It works. And it's okay if DJ Stewart next week only gets 5 at-bats. That's perfectly okay. You don't want that to happen to Mark Vientos. And you would say, all right, well, option Joey Wendell. But now, for one, even less at-bats to go around for all these guys. And you can't be without a backup middle infielder. You can't go and say, oh, well, Francisco Lindor, who we saw in the game today, he dove into home, which was a stupid thing to do, mind you, because he could have got hurt. Glad he didn't, but he dove into home. Imagine he gets hurt in a game like that, and you don't have Joey Wendell to go to and play shortstop. Now what? Jeff McNeil's playing shortstop and Mark Vientos is playing second base. That's not a good position to be in. As much as I hate Joey Wendell being on this team, you need him right now. So that's not an option. It ultimately comes down to Vientos or Beatty this year. And if you want to make the argument that Beatty has not been hitting and Mark Vientos should be the starting third baseman of the New York Mets for the time being, I could actually hear it out because I thought it. When Vientos hits that home run, and I'm playing out in my mind, how does he stand this team? The only thing that makes sense is Brett Beatty gets sent down. And I will say Brett Beatty has only played 32 games in AAA. Mark Vientos has played 184 games in AAA. So Beatty having to go back down to that level, there's no shame in that. Do I think it's going to happen? Ultimately, no. If Brett Beatty's hamstring has still been bothering him, they could IL Beatty, give Vientos a week and a half of run and see what happens, and then make it a decision after that if they wanted to. But Beatty's been playing games, so I don't think that's going to happen. You could option Brett Beatty down, say, listen, you weren't hitting, and it's a meritocracy. Vientos came up, he delivered, and he's going to be the starting third baseman. You give him some run and see how it looks. But do I think David Stearns is going to want to see Mark Vientos playing third base defensively every day at the big league level? Ultimately, I don't think so. And so I think he's going to end up back down, even though, again, he has proven in this moment he can deliver. And I've said this, go back and listen to old Locked On Mets. I mean, I've been talking about Mark Vientos since 2021, and I've been pretty consistent in saying he has the best power out of all the top prospects of his range, in the system. When it came to game power, home run power, I was saying that Vientos had more home run power than Francisco Alvarez or Ronnie Mauricio. So I've believed in him for a long time, and I wish he could be on this team. But because you signed JD Martinez, I just don't know if the fit's ever going to be there this year unless circumstances like this one allow for it. And so maybe you give Beatty a little more time, you send Vientos down. If Beatty continues to struggle, you make the move. Maybe you just are proactive with it and you say Vientos is showing it, so we're going to send Brett Beatty down. It's a tough decision, but I honestly think throughout this year, that's going to be the call they're going to have to make between these two guys. One of them is the starting third baseman in AAA. The other one is the starting third baseman in the big leagues. And unless a DH goes down or it opens up playing time for both, it's got to be that way. It's got to be one or the other in the big leagues. And whoever performs will grab that spot for the year. So we'll see if this is Vientos' opportunity. I think more likely than not, he gets a start. And unless he just becomes undeniable because he goes 4 for 4 with 2 home runs on Monday, I imagine he's going to end up in Syracuse, and it'll be the same roster that we saw prior to Marte going on the bereavement. But an awesome moment for Mark Vientos, and I have a feeling he's going to deliver a couple more times for the Mets this year. If he's the guy you have to call on when you need a bat, it's a good problem to have ultimately. Now, a bad problem to have is what's going on with Adrian Houser. And I was going to spend a whole show on Sunday talking about that. I decided to hold on to it for Monday, and I'm glad I did, because there's been a lot of development when it comes to the Mets pitching depth. David Peterson, Tyler McGill, Christian Scott. I'm going to talk about all of it and where things should stand here with Houser in just a minute. First, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and baseball is in full swing, which makes now the perfect time to head over to FanDuel and place your bet on every game that you'd like. Right now, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from hockey to home runs in baseball to slam dunks in the NBA, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. I don't know what you're waiting for. Again, $150 just for signing up in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All eyes were on Adrian Houser on Saturday as the Mets hoped that he would finally get his season on track. And it got ugly early. Gave up 4 runs on 5 hits in the first inning. Didn't make it through 5. Gave up another run in the third. Gave up a run in the 5th as he allowed 2 hits before being pulled out. And Josh Walker balked in one of his runs. So you look at the line at the end of the day, 6 runs allowed, 4 1/3 innings pitched. Just brutal stuff from Adrian Houser. He was getting booed by Mets fans, and he deserved the boo birds because it's been just brutal for Houser. I did mention prior to this start that it had been a mixed bag. He had 2 pretty decent starts and then 2 awful ones, and those awful ones came against the Braves and the Dodgers. So I was willing to give him a pass. But this clunker against the Cardinals was bad, and it's where you almost have to draw the line. 5 starts that he's made, the Mets have lost 4 of those 5 games. For a team that is hovering around 500 right now, to have a guy that you're throwing out there and you're pretty much losing every 5th day, you can't do it. He's given up 29 hits in 23 2/3 innings pitched. He's given up the most runs on the Mets by far, 22 earned runs in 23 2/3. You look at the Mets starting rotation. If you exclude the start from Tehran where he gave up 4 and the start from Tyler McGill where he gave up 1, you look at the 5 guys who have primarily pitched in this rotation this year, which of course is Houser, Budo, Quintana, Minaya, and Severino. Houser's given up 22 of 58 earned runs from that group. That's nearly 40% of the runs allowed by the Mets starting rotation from Adrian Houser. He has an 8.37 ERA, and he's walked more batters than he struck out, 16-14. If that's not enough to make a change, I don't know what is, but right now it seems the Mets are going to stick with him for one more turn. They've already announced him as a probable pitcher for Thursday. But man, it's been bad. And it's been a death by 1,000 cuts, mind you, as well, because he's only given up 1 home run this year. He's just getting teed off on giving up a ton of hits. Now, with all that said, there is pitching coming. Tyler McGill made a rehab start on Saturday. That was in Brooklyn. Went 2 innings, struck out 6, got up to 31 pitches, 21 of them being strikes. I think they said the next time out, he can get up to 60 pitches. So I imagine he'll need at least 1 more rehab start, and then maybe he'd be ready to go to rejoin the Mets rotation and take Houser's spot to either push Houser to the bullpen, and the only other option would be to DFA him because he does not have any options. So we'll see. We'll see. That's the first sort of exit ramp the Mets can take on Houser is McGill coming back. Then you have David Peterson. He made his first rehab start in Daytona with the Port St. Lucie Mets. 28 pitches, 20 strikes, 2 innings, perfect as well, 5 strikeouts. Now, McGill and Peterson are pitching against basically kids at this point in high A and low A. So seeing that domination is great, but you can't take too much from it. The bottom line, though, is these guys should be good to go by the end of this month for sure. And for McGill, even sooner. The earliest that Peterson can come back is the 27th. And then you have Kodai Senga, who's going to face live batters on Monday. He did throw a bullpen on Thursday. That's the first step for him. He's eligible to return on May 27th. I imagine they might take it slower with him. So maybe you see that push back into June. But the point is, 3 viable starters who could be better than Adrian Houser are coming. So do you wait it out for those guys to come back, or do you make a move with Christian Scott? Another note before I get to Scott, just to finish on the injury updates. Drew Smith went to the IL with shoulder inflammation. We already know Brooks Raley's already there with elbow inflammation. Neither guy seems to have anything more serious than that, so just a waiting game on those bullpen arms. And Nate Lavender, bad news, seems like he might need Tommy John surgery. So the exciting left here from spring training, probably don't see him. All right, that out of the way, let's get back to Christian Scott because he pitched on Sunday, which was surprising. I would have expected him to make a start on Tuesday or Wednesday. If I had recorded a Sunday show breaking down everything on Houser, I would have said, could the Mets have Scott make a start in his place? Well, he made a start on Sunday, but that is important because that was the first time this year that Christian Scott has started on 4 days rest. Now, he went 4 2/3. He did allow a home run again. This one, once again, to Kyle Manzardo, the same guy who got him earlier in the week in the first inning on a sweeper that, honestly, looking at the location of the pitch, really wasn't that bad. That was the only hit that Christian Scott allowed. He walked 2, struck out 2, got through 4 2/3. At that point, he was at 71 pitches. I imagine he was probably on a 70 to 75 pitch count limit, and so they pulled him from at that point. Looking ahead, he just started on 4 days rest. 4 days rest from now would bring him to Friday, where it would be the Tampa Bay Rays. I mentioned on a previous podcast, I could see the Mets letting Christian Scott make his MLB debut in Tampa, so all of his friends and family can make that drive up northwest, and they could be there for the debut. There is a chance that we see that this week. I'm not saying it's definite, but the fact that he started on 4 days rest, that is curious, because if they had no plans of seeing Christian Scott for any time soon, why would they push him to start on 4 days rest? If you're managing his innings and letting him develop in the minor leagues, wouldn't you just hold on to him and have him start the next Tuesday or Wednesday and just give him all the rest and keep him on that long, protected rest plan where you just have him pitch once a week? He'll still develop. He'll get his innings. The fact that he started on 4 days rest, that's curious to me. And again, the way that the Mets set him up in spring training, where they let him pitch in the ballpark that he grew up going to, which is probably, 40 minutes from his house, and all of his friends and family knew about him, were in attendance, even though it was announced 24 hours before he started. I just would not be surprised if he started that day. And here's the thing about it. The Mets have now announced their starters for this upcoming series, right? So you got Severino, Shamanai, Jose Budo, Adrian Houser. I'll give you more of a series preview on tomorrow's show after game one, because I just don't have time to fit it all into the show today. But the Cubs are hot coming into town. You're going to see everybody but Quintana in this series, right? If Houser gets rocked, or even if he doesn't, Friday you can slide Christian Scott into the rotation. You option somebody from that bullpen. You have a spot in the 40 still before Peterson or Senga gets activated. So you can add Christian Scott to the 40-man roster, something that's going to be done at some point this year anyway. You can let him make his MLB debut, and then everybody in the rotation, including Quintana, who just went 8 innings, granted 99 pitches, but still, kind of a high-stress game for him. Everybody would get an extra day in their rotation. And then you can stick with Adrian Houser if he throws the ball well and go to a 6-man for a little bit. See Christian Scott for maybe 2 turns in the rotation. Then when McGill's ready, you make a decision. If Christian Scott gets lit up for 2 starts, then you go to McGill. If Houser continues to struggle, you go to McGill, you push Houser to the bullpen, or you DFA Adrian Houser, for all I know. There's some 40-man stuff that gets complicated when Peterson and Senga come back, because you're going to have to make some moves. And theoretically, yes, you can keep Christian Scott off the 40 all year, and you can wait this thing out so you get your injured guys back. Just see what happens throughout the year. But this is an opportunity where you can slide Scott into the rotation and see what he has. Part of me thinks the Mets are going to take that opportunity. They're going to do it. But I don't know. I've been trying to talk this into existence for weeks now. And so it's me, again, kind of throwing darts against the wall and seeing what's going to actually stick. But it does make sense. It does make sense to me. And then as far as 6-man rotation, Houser in the bullpen, you can go either way with it. I mean, Adrian Houser has pitched out of the bullpen before. You look at the bullpen right now with Smith and Raley on the IL. You got Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, Reed Garrett, Jorge Lopez, Jake Diekman, and Sean Reed-Foley. Those are the 6 guys right now that are definite to stay in the pen. The guys that are more on the taxi squad, it's Daniel Nunez, who did throw the ball well this weekend. He got, 3 strikeouts on the 4 batters he faced, and he walked the other one. And Josh Walker's looked pretty good, honestly. But if Scott came up, you can option one of those guys and have Houser in the bullpen, like I said. Or, you can go to a 6-man rotation and then make that decision when Peterson's healthy on what to do. If you wanted to have a 6-man rotation with Scott in it, with McGill in it, with the guys that you currently have, and you want Houser in the bullpen, you can do that and option the other taxi squad guy if it's still Walker and Nunez or whoever it ends up being. Or you can go from there. But the Mets are going to have some interesting decisions to make throughout this month on their pitching. But if Houser, honestly, you can make a case that Joey Lucchesi should start on Thursday instead of Adrian Houser. And they should either DFA Houser or put him in the pen. I don't think they want to waste a MLB vet starting pitcher arm who can help you get through a full season. I think they still believe in Adrian Houser a little bit, but it's hard to with what we've seen. Lucchesi has a 2.42 ERA in 5 starts in AAA with 26 strikeouts, 20 innings pitched. I'd argue that he would be better than Houser right now for sure, but we just don't know. And when it comes to the 40-man roster, when you get to that point with Peterson, Senga, I'd look pretty like firmly at Shintaro Fujinami, who continues to just have horrible results in AAA. That's a guy that could be a casualty of the 40-man roster. Max Kranick, who is some more rotation depth in AAA now, he could be a 40-man casualty. Cole Sulser's another guy that I'd look at. And then you, of course, have Grant Hartwig, Nunez, or Walker. But I think those guys are probably going to stay and be guys that come up and down throughout the season. So, again, a lot of pitching decisions that the Mets front office has to make here. A little frustrating that it seems like Houser will get one more turn. But I think that there is a chance we see Christian Scott this week. And even beyond that, if it's a bad start from Houser, I'd imagine that they'd either make the move to Lucchesi or they would hope that McGill, who started on Saturday, probably has a rehab start on, if they're going on 4 days rest, you could have them on Thursday, right? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, yeah. Thursday, which is the same day as Houser, ironically enough. And if McGill can get up to 60 pitches in that rehab start and then the next time be available for at least 80, that might just be the simplest move. So we'll see. We'll see how this shakes out this week. It'll be fascinating to watch. On tomorrow's show, I'll break down the first game of this series against the Cubs. Also give you a little bit more of a series preview ask here, where I will tell you what the Cubs have been doing this year and the guys to watch out for, all of that good stuff. So make sure you tune into that show. If you're listening on the audio side, follow, rate, and review so you don't miss it. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to make a push to 9,000 subs, so I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider and be part of our texting service where we get the lineups sent directly to your phone each day, you can ask me questions anytime. You can be part of our Locked On Mets giveaways. You'll find the information in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets first listen every day or your first watch. Now for your second watch, head over to the first ever 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that covers everything in the world of sports. And what a time to tune into Locked On Sports today, because you got the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs. You can get all of the latest from all of our local hosts on each team. So head over to Locked On Sports today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube.